Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. We cover everything Major League, from spring training to the World Series. We've got your favorite club covered, from New York to Boston to LA. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast.
Hello and welcome into another edition of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. This is episode number 221 of the Baseball Podcast here on Thursday, July 30th. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. We really appreciate it. We got a jam-packed episode lined up for you here today. First and foremost, we're going to jump right into the Dodgers and Astros, the little benches clearing fiasco that went down with Joe Kelly. We're going to touch on some details, get into my thoughts about what exactly took place down there in Houston a few nights ago. Then we're going to give you an update on the Marlins COVID situation, the Philadelphia Phillies directly involved, my hometown club here. So I'm very much aware of the details that are being released, and then we'll get into the rest of tonight's results, where we currently stand in the divisions, who's making moves, who needed a win desperately tonight and actually got it. We'll get to all of that later on here today. But right off of the bat, right off the top here, let's talk about Astros Dodgers. Let's talk about Joe Kelly throwing at Bregman, throwing at Correa. And was it intentional? I mean, if you're looking at the details and you watch the entirety of the situation, I think there was one pitch that was intentional, and that was the one to Alex Bregman. Because you think about it and you break it down. Well, let's take a half a step back here. And Joe Kelly himself, when it first happened, I was like, what's the deal with Joe Kelly? He wasn't even on the Dodgers in 2017. I assumed it was going to be somebody who was on that team and feels that they got screwed out of a World Series championship. And then you do just a little bit of digging, and you come to find out that Joe Kelly was on the Red Sox team that was eliminated by the Astros as well prior to that Dodgers World Series. So Joe Kelly still directly involved in the situation. So knowing that fact afterwards certainly made sense that he was right in the middle of it. He's been involved in brawls in the past, scuffles, fights. He's a guy who doesn't take anything from anybody. He's been on some podcasts out there and basically stated the fact that, yeah, I don't back down to anybody, and if you're going to bring it, let's roll type of situation. So back to Monday night and looking directly at kind of the situation here. The leading off the inning, Alex Bregman, it's 3-0. Joe Kelly, you see it in his face. Watch the highlight back. He turns around and he kind of shrugs, and I've been there as a pitcher, and he was pretty much just like, you know what, I'm going to walk this guy anyway. I might as well just drill him with this 3-0 pitch. It's 5-2. We're up 3 runs. He's going to be on first anyway. Let me just drill him. And was the pitch a bit high for everybody's liking out there? Yeah, of course it was. But this is the same Joe Kelly that this offseason went viral for throwing a changeup and breaking a window in his house because he missed a net that looked to be 10 feet by 10 feet wide. And he's known to be wild from time to time. So the fact that he missed probably 6 inches, maybe a foot, if you're getting extremely particular high of ultimately where you should be aiming, yeah, he just missed. And Bregman ducked, got out of the way. He played it cool, played it just like he should have, understanding it's happening in that situation. It's 3-0. You know you got a chance. You know he's not going to groove it down the middle, so you're ready to go, which is why ultimately he was able to get out of the way in that situation. Because as a hitter, you're very aware. And I know I'm jumping a little bit all over the place here, but kind of bear with me because I've been in this exact scenario from every angle. I've been the pitcher who's thrown at somebody purposely and then said, I don't know, it just got away after the game. I've been the guy who stepped in the batter's box, looked at the catcher and said, this one's going right in my ribs, isn't it? Because the guy in front of me hit a ball 450 feet and decided to take his grand old time rounding the bases and admired it a little bit out of the batter's box. So I knew I was getting drilled. And yes, there's communication there. Hey, ribs. Yep. Okay, cool. Take your base moving forward. I've also been in the field, in left field, when a bench is clearing, not brawl has happened, but a scuffle, I will call it. I was playing in the Texas Collegiate League. We didn't like the other team. There were some high and tight fastballs being thrown. People said some words. They clear. I run in from left field. I'm kind of, pushing and shoving a little bit here with some people out of the bullpen. So I've literally been on every angle of this. Now, not directly, of course, it being the repercussion of costing a World Series and cheating. I'm just saying I've been on the sides of intentionally throwing at somebody, knowing it's coming at you, and just kind of understanding all angles of it. But back to the intentional, non-intentional aspect of it, if you continue to watch the inning, the next hitter, Michael Brantley, he got 3 straight breaking balls, okay? And he totally went away from the fastball after he missed it up and into Bregman, went 3 straight breaking balls to Brantley, got him to roll over to first base. There were some words communicated there at first base. Brantley may have clicked his heel as Kelly was covering. It was ground ball to first base, 3-1, pitcher covers. He stepped kind of on the middle of the bag, got a little nick there, words back and forth, some adult language that you could hear on the television once again, since there are no fans in the stands. That was one instance that I was very pleased with being able to see what exactly is taking place in the moment. But the pitcher or the hitter after Brantley, Kelly gets back on the bump after throwing 3 straight breaking balls to Brantley, and he walks Gurriel on 4 pitches, and 3 of the 4 pitches, again, are fastballs nowhere near the zone. So 4 out of the 5 fastballs this guys have thrown have been absolutely nowhere near the zone. 3 breaking balls, 3 strikes to Brantley. He gets an out. This leads to the at-bat with Carlos Correa, where first pitch breaking ball almost takes Correa's head off. So he went head-hunting with Bregman, then he went head-hunting with Correa. But Correa being a breaking ball, I can tell you with 100% absolute fact, nobody in the history of baseball has ever hit somebody on purpose with a breaking ball. Nobody has said, hey, I'm going to drill this guy for homering off me 2 weeks ago. I'm going to hit this guy because the guy in front of him. I'm going to hit this guy because he slid into second with his cleats up earlier. Nobody throws an off-speed pitch. You throw it as hard and as fast as you can so it hurts the most right in the rib area. So this breaking ball that floats above Carlos Correa's head is absolutely not intentional whatsoever, but just certainly looks like it is because it's 5, 6, 7 pitches after whizzing one behind Bregman's back. But following up that first breaking ball with Carlos Correa, Joe Kelly threw 7 straight breaking balls to Correa that entire at-bat. He floated the first one, obviously. The next 6 straight, he got a strikeout from Carlos Correa. That's when he starts gibbering a little bit at him. As they're walking off, I was able to watch it back and read some lips, and I'm going to make this the GPG rated version of the conversation because there's adult language sprinkled in here. But basically, Kelly says, nice swing. And then he starts, nice swing again, repeats it. And he says, that's easy. That's easy. Getting you out. Once again, a few expletives involved in there. Correa responds with, throw your fastball. And Kelly says, throw your fastball, like mocking him, and then just, and you start seeing his face in the memes. And then he basically says, shut up. And then that's when the benches start to clear because once again, it was a little more aggressive and vulgar in the communication back and forth. But basically, Kelly was mocking him. Correa said, throw your fastball and challenge me. And Kelly was like, it's too easy to get you out just throwing sliders, so get back to the dugout. But the only pitch, once again, was the Alex Bregman pitch that arguably was a bit high. And I will agree with that. I did tend to slow it down. Bregman is a short individual, and you're crouched when you're hitting and you go down, so I'm trying to pause it as the ball's going past his head to see if it would have hit him in the shoulders or the head. How high was it? But the fact that I need to do that does mean that it was a bit high and really uncalled for at that level. But the part of it that I loved and the part that just makes me believe Joe Kelly is an absolute psycho out there, and I would love this individual on my team and hate him on every other team I played, is that after he whizzes it high and tight behind Bregman, he turns around and he literally yawns. Like, that's just, man, to be that calm in the moment there and yawn after knowing, hey, that was repercussions or retributions from stealing a World Series title from myself and the rest of this team years ago. It's just, man, it was some of the coolest stuff I've seen, where it just goes to show he is not out of place in these types of scenarios or these types of situations. But some of the follow-up and some of the ramifications that have come from this dust-up, we've recently seen that Joe Kelly got an 8-game suspension. So basically the running joke online is that Joe Kelly got 8 more games than any Houston Astros player for cheating back in 2017. And that's going to be the joke, or the running joke, for as long as there is baseball, because everybody knows Manfred granted the players immunity to get the truth. So they were going to get off scot-free, and people just can't fathom that there weren't any individual suspensions. But then again, I don't know how you're going to suspend the entire team. So it certainly makes sense there. But Joe Kelly gets 8 games for taunting, for throwing at Bregman, for starting a brawl during a pandemic. And on the surface level, you go, man, 8 games, that's a bit steep. A lot of times starters get 6 games, meaning they have to miss a time through the rotation. Relief pitchers, 3-4 games. It usually goes on appearances, 1 to 2 appearances. So relief pitchers give them 4 days every other day. Starting pitchers go 6 games once every 5th day you start. So 8 games does seem a bit on the high end. But then you remember that that's out of 60 games and not 162. And that each day in each game is 2.78 times, whatever it comes out to. So it's like 22 days or 22 games in an actual season for what Joe Kelly did. And that would by far be the longest suspension for any sort of throwing at somebody or player safety or retribution or monitoring themselves, because there has long been a running joke about Major League Baseball and the self-policing, the leniency from the commissioner's office to basically understand that these guys are throwing almost a rock at each other at 95 miles an hour when somebody else does something that's not against the rules but is against the code. And obviously in this situation, Houston did something against the rules, so you know this is coming from players, because if they do this when players break the code, you can only imagine what's going to happen because they actually broke the rules. And just kind of wrapping up my thoughts on everything here. Once again, I'm out of the greater Philadelphia area. I do know some individuals out of the Houston area, but I spoke to some of my Dodgers friends, however you say that, Dodgers friends. Basically, one of them, he's in his 40s. I don't know exactly how old he is, but he told me more or less that he loved every minute of it, and he is still bitter, and he will be bitter for the rest of his life because he hasn't seen a World Series championship since 1988. And as good as the Dodgers have been the last decade, the last 2 decades, they haven't gotten over the hump, and they haven't won one. Obviously, 2017 is as close as you get going to a Game 7, and then the feeling is within the fan base that because Houston was cheating the entire time, that L.A. would have won that series in 6 games, no problem. And he remembers Game 2. He was going into detail about Game 2, a blown lead late, home run that barely went over, and it changed the entire series, and then they went back to Houston, and he just still feels if they were able to get that one, even if they weren't with what Houston was doing, they still would have advanced and won their first World Series in a long time. So he was very happy with Joe Kelly. He said, man, he can get it up to 100. So the fact that it was 96, 97 means he took a little bit off of it, and he went light on Mr. Bregman. So I did speak with him before the 8-game suspension came out, so I don't have any feedback from the fan base on that there. Once again, very much on the high end when it comes to games and the reaction from Major League Baseball. But I think the fact that it led to the scuffle or skirmish and the social distancing rules because Dave Roberts got suspended a game on the Dodgers side. He sat out Wednesday night's action here. As of time of recording, Dusty Baker got fined because he was arguing very much in the face of the umpires. Yes, they both had masks on. There were a few feet in between them, but certainly not in the protocol of what Major League Baseball is looking for in regards to, people getting as close as they can, and there's no arguing. That's in the rule book. That was one of the things. No spitting, no high fives, no fist bumps, and no arguing with the umpires. I was wondering how long it would take for somebody to cross that line and, really push the boundaries there. But the Dodgers and Joe Kelly, they got it done. So was there going to be any action in Game 2? That was really the question coming into tonight. As of recording here late Wednesday night, the Dodgers and Astros are in the bottom of the ninth inning, 2 outs. It is 1-1, so there haven't been any fireworks tonight. No shenanigans. I guess both teams kind of understood it was going to happen at one point. The fact that nobody even got hit, there were a couple messages sent, maybe a couple too high, but no bruises to speak of out of this entire thing. I got to think you're pleased if you're the Houston Astros here. So that'll wrap it up here for the first segment of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. As always, we'll pause right now for a word from one of our sponsors, one of our sister shows. But when we come back, I'm going to give you guys an update on the Marlins COVID situation, how it's affecting the Phillies, how it's affecting the Yankees, Orioles, so on and so forth. Constant information coming out. You guys are going to want to hear it. So stick around, everybody. We'll be right back.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hello and welcome back to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik, and this is episode number 221 of the Baseball Podcast here on Thursday, July 30th. I appreciate you guys tuning in here today. If you haven't done so yet, head to social media. Check out the GSMC Baseball Podcast. We got a Facebook page where we post on there. We discuss some of our thoughts in the action and what's going on, as well as Twitter, the GSMC Baseball Podcast on Twitter. A lot of action going on Twitter. Now that baseball is back, they're playing 4 o'clock games, 7 o'clock, 10 o'clock games. We got 8 hours of baseball per day. We got a lot to tweet about. We got multiple hosts with access to the Twitter sphere. So we're letting you guys know our thoughts and everything that's happening around the league out there and what's going on. So give us a follow on Twitter. Head to Facebook, as well as rate and review the podcast. If you're listening here on Apple Podcasts, scroll down real quick, click that star all the way over there on the right. That'll help us out a lot heading forward. If you're listening on an Android, Google Play, that's cool. You can rate and review us there as well. We certainly appreciate it. But let's jump right in here, keeping you guys up to date on what's going on coronavirus-wise around Major League Baseball, specifically with the Miami Marlins. And being a Phillies fan, being from Philadelphia, seeing this firsthand, seeing it unfold live, in action, real time, it truly was amazing to just kind of follow along with the feeling amongst the national media, the feeling amongst local media, local fans, national fans. Each one of them had their own kind of separate vibe on what is taking place. And just to kind of break things down once again, like we did there in the first segment with Joe Kelly, here, Saturday into Sunday, the Marlins are playing the Phillies for the weekend. 4 players test positive. The results come back Sunday morning. The Marlins do make the Phillies aware before they play the game on Sunday. I have since heard that if it was a night game, they probably would have realized to shut it down and not play. But because it was a 1 o'clock game and the players on the Marlins felt safe and wanted to play and wanted to continue to move forward, they did so. The Phillies had a similar conversation because they were alerted that there were a few positives for the Marlins. They decided to, again, push forward, play the game. Not a problem. Okay, we'll see what happens. Miami decides to stay in Philadelphia as opposed to fly back to Miami to play the Orioles. Well, that ended up being a good decision because Sunday into Monday, everyone on the team was tested again. And on Monday, 5 positives came back for players and 2 positives for employees. So 7 more positives. You're up to 9 players in the last 48 hours at this point on Monday. This is when everything shuts down. Monday into Tuesday, everyone gets tested once again. There are 4 more positives. So now you're at 13 positives in 72 hours, and I believe 18 total positives or 17 total positives out of the 30 rostered players. And it's just, it's amazing because Tuesday into Wednesday, there was 1 more positive. And this is the fascinating part because they're trying to trace back to the kind of origin of how this could have happened. And there are a lot of reports out there, some true, some not true. Of course, like anything on the internet, you have seen or have read that there were talks that the Marlins, while they were in Atlanta playing the Braves, may have strayed from protocol in the hotel, possibly had themselves a good time out in Atlanta, thus potentially contracting the virus and then bringing it back to Philadelphia. And the reason I bring that up is because it does seem that there is a 3, 4, 5 day window here for this virus to really show itself and show these results, because Friday into Saturday or Thursday into Friday, players getting tested every other day, there was only 1 positive for the Marlins. And I believe that was Jorge Alfaro, the catcher, who got banged for the positive test. Well then, 48 hours later, it's 4. The next day, 5. The next day, 4. The next day, 1. So you're looking at here about a 4-day window, 3-day window where, again, if you're reading the reports and thinking that the rumors are true, it's about 72 hours later that these positives are really coming in bunches. It didn't happen immediately. It didn't happen the next day. It happened a few days later, and as it continued to spread within the clubhouse. And the reason I bring that up, once again, not knowing exactly if that's where the virus came from, it could have been a flight attendant, a hotel attendant, a pilot, a baggage handler, whoever it may be. Nobody knows for sure, once again. But they're just basically stating the truth of the chances of where it originated. But because this affects the Philadelphia Phillies, who they played Sunday, and then Major League Baseball canceled their series against the New York Yankees. Everybody listening out here on Thursday knows that. It was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It's been completely wiped. They've also canceled Friday's game against the Blue Jays. They're going to be playing a doubleheader Saturday and then a single game Sunday against the Blue Jays. And the reason for canceling the Phillies is obviously exposure directly to the Marlins, but it is now learning that from the Marlins positives, you may need to give this 48, 72, 96 hours to really know if people in fact caught the disease. Because I was on, discussing this with some friends, and I talked about how the Phillies saved Major League Baseball over the last 48 hours. And they were like, what are you talking about? And I said, the Phillies have come back with 0 positive tests thus far, which means that this outbreak has indeed stayed contained to one clubhouse, even though they played against another team. It goes to show that with the right precautions, they really can keep these players safe. So essentially, they're saving the season, because if it came back that 5, 6, 7, 8 Phillies players are now positive, you got to shut them down. And then if they were to go and play the Yankees, which fortunately they did not, you would have had to shut them down. So it really could have grown in bunches there. But so far, Monday into Tuesday, 0 positive tests for the Phillies. And this is all the Phillies have done. Literally, the Phillies, they drove to Citizens Bank Park. They never got out of the car. They did a saliva test in the parking lot, and then they were sent back home to quarantine again. And they've done this 3 days in a row now here, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Monday into Tuesday, 0 positives came back. Tuesday into Wednesday, 0 positives came back. And this is the only shining light in what is happening with the Marlins and with the coronavirus. Because, again, if this would have spread to the Phillies, it may have shut everything down and potentially caused a total restart or pause for a couple of weeks and double headers and reschedule, and it could have really gotten out of hand. So the response to what has happened here with Major League Baseball, and particularly Rob Manfred, I want to talk about his response on Monday, Tuesday, I forget which night it was, on MLB Network. Obviously, he really hasn't been at the forefront once again. Everybody out there in the media, the fans, are talking about how he needed to release a statement. People don't understand how it could have potentially been up to the Marlins to play on Sunday. How is there not protocol put in place? If there's a certain number of players, this happens. We've heard that literally it was a group vote on the bus or in a group text that the Marlins players were like, thumbs up or thumbs down if you want to play today's game. I mean, that the decision cannot be left up to the players, because at the end of the day, when you're that close to the stadium, you're already doing it, you're going to play. It's just a matter of, thinking like those guys in the NFL who get a little bit dinged up and want to head back into the game really quick because they just want to play. It's always the way you've been conditioned. So, your instinct is going to want to move forward and to play. So it's just kind of fascinating that Manfred allowed the players to come to that decision. And he spoke on Major League Baseball Network, and his reaction was that this is not a nightmare scenario, because the media all day on Monday, this is worst case for baseball. Tuesday, this is worst case for baseball. And then Manfred comes out and says it's not worst case. This isn't a nightmare situation. And then he gets dinged for not taking this virus too seriously, or being too lenient in his protocols, or this isn't going to work and you're not listening to the right people. And that's where, again, Manfred just finds himself in a lose-lose just based on, the house that he's built for himself, with the way he handled the Astros scandal, the Red Sox scandal, the piece of metal trophy, all of this stuff, the negotiations over the past 2 months being ugly in public, and he's 100% confident, and then the next day he doesn't think we're going to have baseball, and just floating back and forth. It's just fascinating to think, what's going on in this guy's head. And when he comes out and says, hey, it isn't a nightmare scenario, I believe him, because I was one of those individuals who said to themselves, Major League Baseball has to have assumed that this was going to happen at some point. I don't think that they believed it was going to be the first weekend of the season. But once again, I don't think that they would delay that meeting until now. I assume, hey, if this happens, what's the move? What do we do? We've had this discussion around 50 different scenarios. The fact that there's an outbreak in one clubhouse had to be one of them. So, of course, in that instance, that makes it not a nightmare scenario, because they've discussed other scenarios that are worse than this one. And the national media, who loves to get things riled up, I'm excited baseball was in the media, but once again, it's, worst case, they got to shut it down. What do they do now? This is ridiculous. And Manfred basically being like, no, it's not. It's just one clubhouse. He gets ripped again for not taking it too seriously. And he doesn't have the health and safety of these players at the front of his mind. And we saw the tweet from David Price discussing this is what he was talking about when he opted out, and this is what he was afraid of, and what is going to happen. And it's a little bit frustrating, because there's no winner here, no matter what happens. I've come to find, as you listen to Manfred talk, or you watch the games, or you do this, or you do that, there's no right decision. There's no winner. There's no losers. There's no wrong decisions. Some people are ripping Major League Baseball for continuing to play. And you have to understand, nobody's ever seen this before. This is something nobody has ever dealt with. The 2020 season is 1,000% coming with an asterisk. The World Series is going to count all the same. And if it's in your city and you want to have your parade socially distant, or in a year or two when things actually calm down, please do so, because I'm going to, if the Phillies somehow win it, which is a 1% chance based on how good our bullpen is. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. It's just one of those things where, yeah, win it, do it, like, have your fun, but there's going to be teams that don't play 60 games. I think we found that out. We're 5 days in, and teams aren't going to complete the full 60. And just a kind of a case in point here of Major League Baseball really going on the fly and being able to manipulate the schedule and work things out on a whim, which I commend them for. And some individuals out there don't like it because it's hurting the integrity of the game, and it's a marathon, now it's a sprint, now you're changing up who's playing what where and how many games they're playing, and none of this makes it a real season. And sure, feel that way, that's fine, I don't care. I'm going to watch the games and basically say, hey, this is pandemic baseball. Everybody in the playoffs, it's different. We understand that. Let's have some fun. Just enjoy it. Try to have a good time. Be positive in a world of negativity right now, and just try to enjoy the baseball we're seeing. Enjoy the designated hitter in the National League. Enjoy the guy on second base I'm watching here in the bottom of the 10th inning for the Astros, who starts there with no outs. In the top of the 10th inning, Roberto Ozuna gets out of it. Now Houston can answer, and all of a sudden we got a strikeout walk. We make it a double play, and we're still not getting runs in extra innings. I never thought I would like this, but you know what? It brings a little energy. Here we go. Ground ball, 4-6-3. We're out of the 10th inning. I mean, it's just fascinating to see. Yesterday's show, they talked about strategies in the extra innings. Well, both teams here swinging away. Neither team scores a run. Let's run it back. Let's do it again. I don't know. Maybe they should have made it like college football. Should the Astros hit first now in extra innings in the top of the 11th, and then the Dodgers go second and flip-flop back and forth that way? Let's do that. I mean, you don't have to change home field. I don't know. Of course, I'm getting outrageous, but that's just that's the point I'm trying to make, is even if that were the case, just enjoy it. Accept it. Like, it's 2020 baseball. It's actual baseball. It's actually happening, and the schedule is ever flowing. The Phillies and Yankees are not playing this week, but now they're going to play next week, when the Phillies were originally going to play the Marlins again, because they actually don't know when the Marlins are going to be able to play. And the Yankees were originally scheduled to play, I believe, the Orioles and the Blue Jays, but they can make up those games at a later point while doing double headers, because they play those teams more often, being in their own division. Therefore, the dates, they can just double up at later points, but the actual cross dates for the interleague play are much more difficult to align for both teams logistically to make happen. And hopefully that made sense to you guys, because it made sense as I read it out there. But basically they're saying, okay, you guys are going to move here and you're going to play double headers because we got to put these guys both in here. And that's going to happen across the league. I mean, the Phillies, Yankees, Marlins, Orioles, this isn't going to be the only time this goes down. So just enjoy it out there is basically my point here in segment number 2. Of course, thoughts and prayers out to all the Marlins players. We don't want anybody getting severely ill or you know, God forbid, dying from this. Of course, that would shut things down. But as far as we've heard, they tend to be in good spirits, nothing too serious. Let's hope the numbers don't come back for the Phillies here over the next 2 days and they stay at that 0, because all 29 other teams are at 0. That was another thing I wanted to mention in this segment. All 29 teams, or all 30 really, unless the Phillies have a couple here over the next couple days. But as of today, everybody outside of the Miami Marlins negative for COVID-19. So maybe this thing does have a chance, and it was just the Marlins kind of straying outside of protocol and seeing how quickly this can go south. So just a warning for all the other teams out there. If you're thinking about going outside of the hotel on the road, it really doesn't feel like a good idea at this point. But that'll wrap it up here for the second segment of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. Once again, we'll pause now for a word from one of our sponsors, one of our sister shows. But when we come back, we'll discuss tonight's action, see where we're at, what's the update with the standings. Come on back, everybody, find out.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
welcome back, and thanks for listening to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik, and this is episode number 221 of the Baseball Podcast here on Thursday, July 30th. Thanks for checking out today's episode. We've talked about a ton already. The Marlins and their coronavirus, what's going on? We talked about the Astros and Dodgers shenanigans that happened Monday night or Tuesday night here as of recording late Wednesday. Nothing has yet to take place as we're in the top of the 11th inning in regards to any fireworks or shenanigans in tonight's response to last night. Here are Tuesday night's game, but let's go around the league here. Let's get you guys up to date on all of today's action, what took place, or yesterday's action, I guess I should say, since you're listening to this here on the 30th. But let's start out with the Arizona Diamondbacks and the Texas Rangers. The Texas Rangers win this ball game 7-4 to improve to 2-3 on the year. Arizona falls to 2-4. Not a good start for the Diamondbacks there. The Rangers got out to a 2-0 lead through 5. Arizona scored 2 to tie it up in the top of the 7th, 2 more to take the lead in the top of the 8th, and then give it right back. 5 runs in the bottom of the 8th inning for the Texas Rangers, and the loss goes to Shafin for the Arizona Diamondbacks. And in a game that was started by Madison Bumgarner, let's look at his line here. He went 5 1/3, 4 hits, 2 runs, both of them earned, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts, giving up 1 home run in 88 pitches, and that brings his ERA to 4.09 on the year. So 4.9, that's right around where I thought Madison would be this year, even though he did sign that contract. I know if you guys have been listening for a few months now, the simulations have been very high on Madison Bumgarner and had hit much closer to that 2.0 range than the 4.0 range, and I just didn't think that was the case with all the bullets he had used in years past. So 5 1/3, 2 runs, though, still a good outing, 88 pitches, right around where you want to be, but the bullpen on Arizona's side, not very good. Hector Rondon, who was brought over from Houston to help out, he went 2/3 of an inning, 2 hits, 2 runs, 3 walks. Couldn't find the strike zone at all, and like I said, Shafin with the blown save and the loss, giving up 2 hits, 3 runs, 1 walk, and not recording an out. On Texas's side on the mound, Lance Lynn, 6 scoreless innings once again. His ERA remains 0.00. He has yet to give up a run here in 2020. He did give up a hit, 2 walks, struck out 8, 102 pitches. They extended him just a bit here in regards to his pitch count, but 6 total innings. That's right where you need him. The bullpen tried to give it away. Chavez, Hernandez, and Goody. Hernandez and Chavez both giving up a couple of runs in an inning's work, but ultimately the offense for Texas came through as, let's see here, Frazier had homered for Texas, and then Gallo homered to left center to tie it up at 4. And then Andrews gave him the lead after that in the 8th inning. So Texas stays alive. I mean, you really don't want to go to 1-4 early on. Arizona trying to get back to 500 here quickly, but they again fall to 2-4. Next up, we're looking at the Nationals versus the Blue Jays. This was a must-win for the Washington Nationals early on. I mean, Washington at 1-4, playing the Yankees. Yes, you can understand that, but then you get the Blue Jays, and you're going to expect to win some of those ball games. So 1-4, you got Max Scherzer on the bump. Technically, it's a road game, but it's in Nationals Park. This is one of the ones where Toronto was the home team on the road somehow once again, but Scherzer ends up being the Max Scherzer that Washington needs. 7 1/3, 3 hits, 0 runs, 10 Ks, 3 walks, a little high for Max. 112 pitches, honestly, more than I think I'd be comfortable with at this stage. Even if I was a fan of the Phillies or a manager of the squad, I know Scherzer and the horse he is. And like I said, almost a must-win 5 games in, because if you multiply all games by 2.8, round up to 3 or round down to 2.5, whatever you want to do here, 1-4 and 1-5, I mean, basically puts you at what, 2-12, 2-13? That's a really slow start when you start to spread things out here. So this was a game they had to have, which is why I understand extending Scherzer to the pitch count there of 112. On the Blue Jays side of things, Pearson, he was electric on the bump. He's 100 miles an hour, a nasty slider. He went 5 innings, 2 hits, walked 2, struck out 5, only 75 pitches. Again, could have went 6-7, but I think it's smart pulling a guy like this early. He's having success. Let him feel confident about himself. Let him go into that next start feeling really strong, really confident. And, really that swag should come out for Pearson as he continues to try to establish himself here at a big league level. The bullpen continued strong. Dallas, Gavilago, Romano, Bass, and then Yamaguchi, unfortunately, in the top of the 10th, couldn't hold things down. Again, we have the runner on second base here. So in the top of the 10th inning, let's see if we can find the way the Nationals went about things here. I got to scroll down the screen. Bear with me. Okay, nope. We had a walk, second walk, 2 strikeouts. Wow. So Yamaguchi keeping things interesting there. But then Adam Eaton reached on an infield single, and as Drupal Cabrera tripled to right, which cleared the bases, giving them a 4-0 victory over the Blue Jays, who fall to 3-3 on the year, but a strong start for Toronto. Right in this one, could have went to 4-2, 3-3 for them. It's definitely above expectations from where I'm sitting here recording with you guys late Wednesday evening. Next up, we got the White Sox and the Indians. Chicago White Sox, they were 1-4 heading into yesterday's action as well. Cleveland came in at 4-1, really establishing dominance in the AL Central with that pitching staff. But the shoe came in on the other foot here today. Giolito threw 6 scoreless innings, gave up 4 hits, struck out 6. His changeup was working very effectively. He needed this after getting hit around opening day. 6 scoreless only brought his ERA down to 6.52. So that makes you, wonder how high it was coming into today. I wasn't able to look beforehand, but certainly, yeah, that was a high number he didn't like looking at. So felt like he had to come in here and show himself. Marshall, Bummer, and Colomb continued the shutout for the White Sox here. On the Indian side pitching, Plesac was electric. It's unbelievable. He went 8 scoreless innings. The White Sox didn't score their 4 runs until the top of the 9th. So Cleveland's starting pitching continues to just be absolutely fantastic. 8 innings, 3 hits, 11 strikeouts, double-digit strikeouts for Indians pitchers once again. We talked about how they had 3 out of the top 4 or 5. Well, now it's probably 4 out of the top 6. But unfortunately, Hand in the top of the 9th came in. 1/3 of an inning, 4 runs, 3 of them earned, 1 hit, 1 walk. There must have been an error or 2 involved in there with the unearned run. But Plesac, a tough earned no decision of 8 innings and scoreless ball and only 98 pitches. So super effective, super efficient. Just, frustrating outing not to come away victorious when you're Plesac and you throw that outing out there. So let's see here. Top of the 9th inning, how did Chicago get their runs? Sac fly, single to center, sac fly. So a lot of walks, a double in there by Timmy Anderson, and then there's your error at first base that led to the 4 runs and the win the White Sox needed. Honestly, they were my surprise team in the American League before we were looking at the full-length 162. It hasn't been a quick start for them either. So a frustrating team early on. The White Sox are to follow, especially that offense, the way they were pounding against Minnesota, than to face Cleveland and be shut down. It just goes to show you how good that Cleveland pitching staff is. The next up here, Cubbies and the Reds. The Reds finally woke up. They were 1-4 as well. Each team 1-4 here. Nationals, White Sox, Reds. They get it done. They don't get buried. It was close early on for all these guys, but a lot of the aces stepped up for these teams when they need it, because the Cubbies at 4-1, they could have really started to run away with the NL Central. If you're the Reds, you're already 4 games back, and it's only been 5 games. But that offense finally showed up for them. And the good news for the Reds was Moustakas was back in the lineup. Let's see, Senzel was back in the lineup. Both of those guys remained home on Sunday into Monday due to precautionary reasons. Neither of them felt 100%. But still, not everything is always coronavirus. I myself ate some food. It didn't agree with me, had a 24-hour bug, and good to go. So it isn't 100% of everybody not feeling well. And I know that's obviously the reaction nowadays, but it certainly seems like Moustakas and Senzel were 2 of the gentlemen who just caught a little bit of a bug and are now back feeling good. But from a pitching perspective, Sonny Gray, he improves to 2-0. And like I said, the Reds are 2-4. He went 6 2/3, 1 hit, 2 runs, none of them earned. So a couple of errors there. 1 walk, 11 strikeouts for Sonny Gray. 92 pitches. He has an ERA of .71 through 2 starts. He's been absolutely electric. And if you guys haven't seen the highlights of his front door two-seamer to the lefties in this game against the Cubs and then back door to the righties, there was one of them. I watched it. I texted a buddy. I said, dude, this ball is supposed to hit you. And it ended up literally right down the middle. Like the catcher had to almost catch it backwards because it ran too much and wasn't even just on the inside corner, but it was actually over the heart of the plate. That's how absolutely filthy that was. But on the flip side, Kyle Hendricks came back to earth here. Complete game shutout opening day. Everybody was talking about his, praising him, discussing his glory. And then Hendricks here, 4 1/3, 7 hits, 6 runs, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts, gave up a long ball. His ERA goes all the way up to .405 after getting hit around by the Cincinnati Reds here and on Wednesday evening. So Brothers out of the bullpen for Chicago didn't fare much better. He went 1 1/3, 2 hits, 3 runs, gave up a couple of long balls. Norwood, Maples, and then Underwood were able to stabilize things down the stretch. But like I said, Cincinnati gets that win that they desperately needed to avoid 1-5 here early on. The Brewers and the Pirates, Milwaukee, they win 3-0. They improved to 3-3 on the year. Pittsburgh only falls to 2-4. Pittsburgh early on, hanging in there. The Brewers, like I said, not a lot of firepower offensively. I really don't see them sticking around here for the long haul, to be honest with you, with the Cubbies, with the Cardinals, hopefully with the Reds, based on my prediction. But, on the mound, Woodruff was nasty for Milwaukee, 6 1/3, no runs, 10 strikeouts, 1 walk, 1.59 ERA, and 2 starts for him, even though his record is 1-1. But again, he was electric tonight. That slider, that power fastball, 97 with run. It's just, man, I wouldn't want to hit it. And then you got Hader with the save, 1 strikeout, 12 pitches, 9 of them strikes in 1 inning. Pretty strong outing for him. And then Pittsburgh side of things, Musgrove, 5 2/3, 3 runs. His ERA at .476. Kind of what you come to expect from those guys. And then offensively, Gamble and Heria homered for Milwaukee to give them the 3-0 victory in Pittsburgh. Tampa Bay and Atlanta. The Atlanta won 7-4 to improve to 3-3. Tampa falls to 4-2 here early on the year. I was obviously rooting for Tampa Bay. I like seeing Atlanta under 500 here because I think the Phillies are not that good. And if Atlanta is going to struggle, that's where we're at here. But let's see. From a pitching perspective, Atlanta, Soroka, 5 1/3, 4 hits, 3 runs, 5 Ks, 3 walks. A good outing, solid outing for Soroka. The bullpen strong, though. O'Day, Minter, Martin, Melanson. He gets the save there. From Tampa side of things, Morton went 5 innings, gave up 2 runs, 80 pitches. Pulled him potentially a bit early there at 80 pitches. I think you may be able to get one more out of him, but you don't want to push it early on. And with all of these arm injuries that we've discussed here on the podcast happening to all these pitchers, I certainly understand being on the safe side and not wanting to push things too bad here. So Kettridge came in, gave up a couple of runs in a third of an inning, and then my guy Oliver Drake actually got the loss. 2/3 of an inning, 2 hits, 1 run, 1 walk, 1 strikeout. I played against Oliver Drake in college. Oliver actually went to the Naval Academy during my time there. He was an electric right-hander. Didn't have the same exact windup he has now, but he was in their rotation on the weekend. He was a stud for them on the mound, and he seemed like a good kid. So I tend to root for Oliver, knowing that I faced him a handful of times a year in college and decided to hold my own. I don't have the stats off the top of my head, but I know I did look. And I knew I did well because he made it to the bigs. And I went, wait, how did I do off that guy? All right, not bad, not bad. So wrapping up the third segment here, let's talk about the Kansas City Royals and the Detroit Tigers. The Detroit Tigers continue to be the surprise of July. I know it's been 7 days, 6 games, whatever it's been. But the fact that the Tigers are 4-2 and just taking advantage of what is given to them, because both Kansas City and Detroit we're supposed to be rebuilding, regrouping, whatever it is, tanking, if we're using that term in baseball now. But they get out to a 2-1 start. They decide to face the Kansas City Royals, take advantage of Kansas City, and now you find yourself feeling good. I mean, even after Boyd goes 5 innings and gives up 4 runs, your best starter there, 89 pitches, his ERA is 7.2, and they just said, hey, we'll hit around it. We'll just get to Daniel Duffy. We'll make him give up 4 runs in 5 innings and go back and forth. I mean, Kansas City jumps out to a 4-0 lead. Detroit responds with a 3 spot in the bottom of the 5th to tie it up, then gets the winning run in the bottom of the 7th against Ian Kennedy for the win. And the winning run, Jones hit a home run to right. Man, it's fascinating to see the 9-hole hitter, 3 for 3. Jacoby Jones hitting, let's see here, what's he hitting this year? 421. It's like, man, who would have thought Jacoby Jones would have ever put some power into a baseball and won a game for him? But fascinating to see here. So that'll wrap it up for the third segment here of the GSMC Baseball Podcast. What we'll do is we'll pause right now for a word from one of our sponsors, one of our sister shows. When we come back, we'll wrap up talking about the rest of the games, then give you guys a brief snapshot of where all the teams stand as of here Thursday, July 30th. So stick around, everybody. This is Kevin Mahalik with the GSMC Baseball Podcast. We'll be right back.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
Welcome back, everybody, to the fourth and final segment of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. It's Thursday, July 30th here. We're wrapping up episode number 221 of the Baseball Podcast. If you haven't checked out any of the other shows within the GSMC umbrella, I think you're doing yourself a disservice out there. I really do. I mean, if you're not just into sports and you're into movies, music, news, politics, pets, books, whatever it is, GSMC has a podcast for you. I mean, literally just type GSMC into the search bar and you'll find, I believe it's upwards of 20 different podcasts that'll bring you guys excellent quality content out there to listen to. So if you're only listening to baseball, but hey, you're like, man, I like books too, or I like cars, music, whatever it is, type that one into the search bar as well. Click subscribe, give us a follow. We certainly appreciate it here at GSMC. But wrapping up today's episode, continuing to run around the league, give you guys an update of what happened here in Wednesday night's action. The New York Yankees, they defeat the Baltimore Orioles in a first-place matchup. And the reason I say that is because nobody thought Baltimore would ever be sniffing first place, let alone 1-0, even after opening day. So 2-1 there, tied with 2-1 with the Yankees. The Yankees improved to 3-1. Baltimore falls to 2-2 on the evening. Garrett Cole, he went 6 2/3. He improved to 2-0. He gave up 4 hits, 3 runs, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts. He did give up a long ball, went 102 pitches. So Scherzer and Cole seem to have the 2 highest pitch counts that I've witnessed here, second time through the rotation. And for both of those guys coming off as long as in October as it was last year, that's just kind of fascinating to see them really hit that high intensity mark early on in the year once again. Now, I know these guys are 2 absolute studs, absolute horses, but still, I just think, man, early on, that may be a bit much for those guys here. So Cole gets the win. Let's see. Green in the bullpen there as well for New York. Offensively, LeMahieu homered. Judge hit another home run. Hicks hit a home run. The offensives, the bats were working for him. Stanton had a couple of RBIs. Let's see here. Baltimore side of things, Wojciechowski gave up 5 runs, 4 of them earned. in 5 innings. His ERA is now 7.2. A couple of times through here, he struggled opening day as well for them. Phillips gave up a couple of runs in an inning, and it just it wasn't meant to be from Baltimore's side, as New York went up 2 in the first and then 3 in the third for a 5-1 lead after 3 innings, and pretty much just decided to coast on home from there. So New York continues to be a heavy hitter there in the AL East in Baltimore. Enjoy it while you last out there, Orioles fans. So next up, the Minnesota Twins, St. Louis Cardinals. The Twins win 3-0 here over the Cardinals. Rich Hill, 5 scoreless innings, his first victory of the year. 2 hits, 1 walk, 2 strikeouts, 68 pitches for his first time out, I believe, in 2020. Then they went to Duffy for a scoreless inning. Romo, Clippard, and Rogers for Minnesota's bullpen. That's well executed for them out there from the pitching side of things. Offensively, Nelson Cruz with another RBI double in today's action. Rosario hit a home run in the 4th inning to get their 3 runs. Cruz leads the league. Last we looked here, I believe that's still the case. Ponce de Leon for St. Louis, the starting pitcher. He went 3 2/3. Gave up 2 hits, 3 runs, all 3 of them earned. Did have 8 strikeouts, but 3 walks as well. So electric stuff, just kind of all over the place. You know, giving up a home run, 3 walks, 8 Ks. It shows that your stuff is there, but the command just isn't where it needs to be for you to be efficient over and over again. Let's see, the Red Sox and Mets. The Red Sox hung on to win 6-5 in what continues to be a theme of the teams at 1-4. Getting the victory they desperately need. The Red Sox improved to 2-4. New York falls to 3-3. New York had the bases loaded in the bottom of the 9th. Robinson Cano up, but he was unable to come through for the Mets, and the Red Sox ultimately escape with a victory. Workman escapes with the save, did give up 1 run in the inning, 2 walks, a couple of strikeouts. Barnes gave up a run there in the 8th inning as New York was trying to make a comeback. Let's see, Boston, they took a 6-3 lead in the top of the 8th, and then New York battled back after that. But strong start from Nathan Eovaldi. He went 5 innings, 2 earned runs, 8 hits, 89 pitches. His ERA stands at 2.45. That's pretty good for Nathan here early on. I didn't think he'd be executing that well after his struggles last year coming off the arm surgery. From the Mets side of things, though, this is the game you got to win if you're the New York Mets, especially with the way your pitching staff is striking out, because this was DeGrom's game. Jacob DeGrom, 6 innings, 3 hits, 2 runs, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts, 88 pitches. That's not a great line for DeGrom, to be honest with you. I mean, 1.64 ERA through 2 starts. Of course, it's now 2 runs in probably 14 innings or so for DeGrom. But this is something you got to take advantage of. And Boston kind of bought their time. They got 2 off of him in the 4th inning. They were able to get a couple of double and then a wild pitch to score 2. And then they took advantage with 3 in the 8th, like I said. They took advantage of Wilson in the Mets bullpen before Betances came in to put the fire out. I mean, I don't know why you don't go to Betances there in the own right if he is available. If he's available to come in and put the fire out, that means he's available to start and not let the fire start in the first place. So, and that I don't understand from a bullpen perspective. I don't know if it was a tie game there and they were waiting to see if they were to take the lead, but they went Betances Familia too little too late if you're the New York Mets there after Boston took the lead with a Vasquez home run, and then Moreland and a couple of other guys making things happen in the 8th inning for the Red Sox. But they get that win they desperately needed, like I mentioned, to get to 2-4 on the year, and the Mets fall to 3-3. So next up, we got the Rockies and the Athletics. Colorado wins 5-1. They improved to 4-1 on the year. Honestly, that's much better than I had anticipated for the Colorado Rockies. Oakland falls to 3-3. A lot of people were high on the Oakland A's, but 3-3 out of the gate, not exactly jumping out to a quick start here. But for Colorado, Marquez went 6 innings, 4 hits, 1 run, 8 strikeouts, 95 pitches. His ERA now 1.54. The bullpen there with 3 scoreless innings behind him. Diaz, Estevez, and Almonte do their jobs on that side of things. Montez, he gave up 2 runs in 5 innings for Oakland. And then Luzardo went 3 2/3, giving up 1 earned run, 3 total runs, though, so the defense for Oakland, not exactly where things need to be. And honestly, I mean, they scored, Oakland that is, in the bottom of the first on a Chapman home run, and then went scoreless from then on out. So Marquise settled in after giving up a first-inning long ball and throwing scoreless after that, and Colorado just continued to kind of plug away. Single here, double there, no long balls involved. Just a good victory for the Colorado Rockies, as again, they get out to a nice start at 4-1 here. And let's see. Next up, we got the Dodgers and the Astros. And ladies and gentlemen, it's almost about 11:30 here Wednesday night East Coast time. And we're heading to the middle of the 12th inning in Houston. Even with this extra inning rule, with starting with a runner on second base in the 10th inning, both teams decided to not score a run. Neither of them have bunted him over and tried to sacrifice fly. Both of them tried to hit away, weren't able to come up with any offense there. Then in the 11th inning, they did indeed both score 1 run. Once again, bases loaded. Both teams only get 1 across. And now here in the top of the 12th, L.A. was able to get that run across the board, and Houston will look to win the game here in the bottom of the 12th. But from a pitching perspective, Javier was very good for Houston. Right-hander, 5 2/3, 1 run, 1 walk, 8 strikeouts, 3.5 ERA for him. From the Dodgers side, they're running through the arms here. May was only able to get through 3 1/3 in 76 pitches, which means they've used now 9 different pitchers here in 11 total innings, and I think we make it our 10th for the 12th inning. But they had cheers to expanded rosters, I suppose. But both teams scored 1 run in the second inning and nothing again until the 11th. So if you're a fan of pitchers duels, you've liked this game in Houston so far. A couple of other games that are in progress here as of this point. The LA Angels and the Seattle Mariners. The Mariners here may be the only team to fall to 1-5. They were up 1-0, but since then, Shohei Ohtani has decided to hit his first home run of 2020. 3-run home run for LA out there as they're trying to back Heaney on the bump, who has gone through 4 innings at this point, giving up 1 run. He's been strong for LA thus far as they head to the top of the 5th inning. Dunn went 3 innings for Seattle, and now they're started to go to the bullpen, so it'll be fascinating to see how things play out so far. Mike Trout, his 0 for 2, he reached on an error because he scored a run. And like I said, Ohtani with their only hit and 3 RBIs. And then 4 hits for Seattle. Seager, he has the home run, but they still trail 3-1. And then the final game on the docket here today that's still taking place in the top of the 5th inning, about to head to the bottom of the 5th, is the Padres at the Giants. The Padres currently 4-1 and winning once again. They're going to be a surprise here the first week of the season, that's for sure. Obviously, everybody knows LA and what they're doing out west, but nobody thought the Padres would be able to put a start like this together at 4-1, soon to be 5-1 over the San Francisco Giants. But you got to take advantage of the Giants. Everybody knows they're rebuilding out there. Johnny Cueto only went 3 2/3 tonight. He gave up 4 runs, 1 home run. His ERA is at 5.87, and that's the top end of their rotation there. So we know what we're getting. From San Diego's side, Chris Paddock's on the bump. He's given up 2 runs through 4 innings so far as they head to the 5th. He'll probably go 1 more inning out there. He's currently at 73 pitches. Get him into the 80s. Get him feeling good about himself and get him out of there with another victory if you're San Diego. But that wraps it up for the individual games here as of Wednesday night. Let's check in with the standings here as we get you guys out of here Thursday, July 30th. Let's touch base, see where everybody's at here currently. In the American League, the AL East, we got the Yankees at 3-1 at the top of the division. They are technically tied with the 4-2 Tampa Bay Rays. But if we're looking at winning percentage, your New York Yankees are at the top of the list there. Toronto at 3-3. That's right around where we see them. I've been overly impressed with them early on. I think they're better than I thought they were. Baltimore's just trying to hang on. And then Boston, man, it's going to be a long summer in Beantown. The locals up there are not happy about it already. I know local kid here from Philly, Chaim Bloom. A lot of people wanted him for the Phillies at general manager. They wanted to get rid of Matt Klentak and bring in Chaim Bloom, but Chaim is not your standard Boston GM. He's not going to bring in big names. He's not going to spend huge money early on. He's looking to totally revamp Boston from top to bottom here, and I think it's going to be a couple of years of some turmoil in Boston before they really reap the rewards and what Chaim is known for, and that's really bringing in great talent at excellent prices down there in Tampa Bay for the past couple of years. But the American League Central, the Twins at 4-1, the Indians at 4-2. Those two, I think, are going to be there for the rest of the summer. The Tigers are a surprise at 4-2. Nobody sees them being able to maintain that all the way through. The White Sox at 2-4, a bit underperforming down there with the Royals, but to be expected. So a 2-horse race, Yankees-Rays, 2-horse race, Twins-Indians, and the top two are now guaranteed playoff spots because I keep forgetting about the extended playoffs that happened literally in the 24th hour right before the year started. So Toronto's going to find themselves in the playoffs. They keep playing 500. Detroit could as well. And then you go out west, 3-2. Houston looking to go to 4-2 here in the bottom of the 12th. Oakland at 3-3. Texas 2-3. So the West, not really off to a great start as they're battling the NL West, which, has really been superior to this point. But transitioning over to the National League here, looking at the NL East, the Marlins still sit at top at 2-1. Who knows when they'll play their next game, and the winning percentage of .667 may be good enough to win the division. No, I'm just kidding. But ultimately, we'll see what happens with them and when they find themselves back on the field. But outside of that, the Braves 3-3, the Mets 3-3, Washington 2-4, and the Phillies only at 1-2 because they haven't made up these games here. So really nobody in the NL East playing great baseball here early on. They're leaving the door open for anybody to get hot and really take advantage of this division. The NL Central, the Cincinnati Reds are in the basement at 2-4. Let's see here. The Chicago Cubs at 4-2. They find themselves at the top. Milwaukee 3-3. St. Louis 2-3. And Pittsburgh at 2-4 there. And then out west, like I said, Colorado, San Diego, 4-1, LA at 3-2, a game out, but Colorado and San Diego are a bit surprising this early. So San Francisco and Arizona currently find themselves in the basement. But it's just been fantastic to talk to you guys about actual baseball, to talk about actual pitching line, actual pitching performances, where they're currently at. These are must wins. 4 out of the 5 teams that were 1-4 look to be getting a victory, with Seattle to be determined at time of recording, but the Angels currently leading that ball game here. Seattle could be the only 1-5 team in baseball. And again, you got the Marlins and Phillies at 1-2 and 2-1, only playing 3 games so far because the schedule is just all out of whack. But I appreciate you guys listening in. That's going to wrap it up here for today's episode of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Once again, leave us a 5-star rating, write us a review, check us out on social media. As always, we certainly appreciate everything you guys are doing out there for the Baseball Podcast. Share us with your friends. Hit those 3 little dots down low. Send a text, please. We certainly appreciate it. But have yourselves a good rest of the weekend. I'll talk to you guys again on Monday's episode. This was episode number 221 of the GSMC Baseball Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. Have a great night, everybody.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.